Okay? What do you think many of your so-called godmen are? I know how many people in this room follow a godman. No hands going up. But let me tell you, the vast majority of godmen succeed because they have this ability to get under your skin. They have this ability to make you feel they know you. They know things about you which you've never told them. That you can relate to them. It's like a spider weaving a web. Okay? And psychopathic leaders are like that. They can get under your skin. Okay? Now I'm going to give you 2 cases. Don't try to read before me. Let me read the case out to you. Alright? Case 1. A railway trolley, just close your eyes and imagine this. A railway trolley is hurtling down a track. In its path are 5 people who are trapped on the line and cannot escape. Fortunately, you are in a position where you can flip a switch that will divert the trolley down a fork in a track away from the 5 people. Fantastic. But there is a price. There is another person trapped down that fork, and the trolley will kill him instead. So, how many of you will flip the switch, save 5 people, and kill 1 person? Hands up, please, if you will flip the switch. Excellent. I see quite a few hands going up. Hold that thought. Okay. Now, case 2. A railway trolley again is speeding out of control towards 5 people. But this time, you're standing on a railway bridge above, and in front of you is this huge stranger. The only way to save those 5 people is to push him over so that he falls in front of the trolley and stops the trolley. Okay? How many of you will push the guy over to stop the trolley and save 5 people? I see 1 or 2 hands, brave hands going up. Alright. So I'll tell you, both these are called moral dilemmas. You are forced to take action that harms somebody but saves other people. Okay? And this can happen to you in real life. Alright. Now, the first one is an impersonal moral dilemma. All you had to do was flip a switch. Not a big deal. The second one is a personal moral dilemma. You actually had to kill someone, dump him over onto the track. Right? Now, when you look at the personal versus interpersonal in a brain scan, right? When the dilemma crosses from impersonal to personal, your emotional brain will light up. All those red areas will light up in your brain. So if you're not a psychopath, your brain lights up because this is troublesome to you. Right? You're less troubled by the impersonal, by flipping the switch. You're very troubled by the personal. What happens in the brain of the psychopath? There is radio silence. Nothing lights up. Because it doesn't affect the psychopath at all. Now what does this tell you? That he lacks empathy. He is unable to put himself or herself in your shoes. Okay? Now, who put their hand up saying, I'll heave the person over onto the track? Who put their hand up to say, I will heave the person over to the track? I will kill the guy to stop the trolley from killing 5 people. Potential psychopath. Easy diagnosis. I'm joking. Okay? Now, so the author of this book, okay, it's a beautiful book. I'll recommend it to you. The Wisdom of Psychopaths. Okay? Now the author of this book, what he points out is that this is Arctic neurology. Who stays ice cool under pressure? Our chairman was just talking to us about a dangerous situation and how that situation was handled. Okay? What they found in research was Neil Armstrong, the first man to land in the moon. You would think that his heart would be a trip hammer. His pulse would be all over the place. He'll be sweating when he's stepping off that moon landing Apollo onto the moon. Correct? No man has ever done it before. You would think that he was under tremendous pressure when he did that. What happened? His heart rate fell rather than rose. Okay? So he was ice cool. More pressured he got, he was ice cool. Right? Now another example, there was a study of bomb disposal operators, and as captain would tell you, group captain will tell you, bomb disposal is risky business. Can blow up on your face naturally. You're on tenterhooks every moment. And you're doing this, please remember, for other people, not for yourself. Right? Now, he looked at people, Stanley Rackman, those who had been in the profession for over 10 years, and divided them into those who had been decorated and those who had not been decorated. Meaning these people got awards, these people didn't get awards, but they had the same amount of experience. And what did he find? In the decorated, those who were awarded, their heart rate actually goes down when they start diffusing a bomb. They assume what he called a cold meditative focus. This is a very important leadership lesson, that under pressure, there is a group of leaders who don't flinch, who embrace pressure. They want pressure, right? And they actually chill. They calm down even further in order to do what they have to do. And this is an important thing for you to keep in mind. And what's the difference between Veerappan, Sandalwood Veerappan, whom we all know, and Elon Musk? What's the difference between these people? There was a study which looked at it. Superficial charm, egocentricity, I am the most important person in the room, persuasiveness, I can get you to do things what I want you to do, lack of empathy, independence in thought, and focus was all great in the business leader. The same things was there in the criminal, but he had law breaking, impulsivity, and physical aggression cranked up. Okay? So, the effective business leader is as criminal in his mind as the fellow in jail. Elon Musk's brain is very similar to Veerappan's brain. Right? But Elon Musk uses it in such a way that he never gets into trouble with the law. Right? Poor chap Veerappan gets himself into trouble with the law. That's the fundamental difference. But that quality of leadership is a very interesting quality, which I'll leave you with as a thought process. So, from this section, I want you to conclude that the capacity to make hard decisions, however hurtful they may be, defines leadership. Empathy is an important leadership quality, but misplaced empathy can be a leadership killer. You need to feel empathy, but not in such a way that it kills your own leadership. This is important. Finally, the Stockdale Paradox. If you have not read this book, you must. It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Okay? Now, what Jim Collins says is that every good to great company faced significant adversity along the way to greatness of one sort or the other. And every case, the management team responded with a powerful psychological quality. On the one hand, they stoically accepted the brutal facts of reality, and on the other hand, they maintained faith in the end game that we will prevail. Okay? Now, this he calls this duality, he calls the Stockdale Paradox, which goes to Admiral Jim Stockdale. Now, he was the highest ranking United States military officer housed in the Hanoi Hilton, a prisoner of war camp during the height of the Vietnam War. He was imprisoned for 8 years, separated from his family. He didn't know how they were doing. They didn't know how he was doing. He was tortured 20 times. He lived through the war without any prisoner's rights, no set release date, and no certainty as to whether he would ever survive to see his family again. Now, but what did he do? If you read the chapter, which makes very interesting reading, he organized everyone around him to communicate with each other. So they would hit their spoons on the prison cell bars, and they had a coded language that he developed that they used to communicate constantly with each other, and he used that to motivate people, right? So, he was asked the question, who did not make it out from Vietnam? Who kind of died in this process? And he said, the optimists died. Now you would think the optimists are the one who will survive, right? He said, no, the optimists died. Why did the optimists not make it? Because they were saying, oh, when it comes to Christmas, I'll be released. Somebody will get me out of here. Then when Christmas is over, they'll say, when it comes to Easter, I'll be released. Someone's going to get me out of here. So they lived constantly with the belief that someone's going to get them out of here. And he pointed out that that was not good enough. So he said, you must never confuse the faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. So he told himself, I have no date in my mind. I do not know when I will get out of here, but I will get out of it. Right? And that helped him survive. And if you read the Jewish stories from the World War, the prisoners' camps, same stories you will read there as well. Okay? So rational optimism, faith that one will prevail, and the resilience to fight against all odds, to play the long game, they define the leader. And this is a point that I want to, this is about roots of resilience. Okay? Long range planning, thinking for the long future, and being able to delay gratification. Right? If you think about it, what does your social media do to you today? It makes you want instant gratification. I posted. Now, how many people liked? Oh my God, only 2 people liked. Right? 5 minutes later, how many people liked? 10 minutes later, how many people liked? Right? Now, it makes you want to be gratified. Right? I post. I know they will like. Let me check this 24 hours later. That's delaying gratification. Right? Delaying gratification is a very important leadership quality. So in summary, develop your 5 minds: disciplined, synthesizing, creative, respectful, ethical. They will serve you well. Balance your empathy with cold, hard logic. Like Jobs and Musk, develop your Arctic neurology. It's important. Right? Read The Wisdom of the Psychopaths. Please read Walter Isaacson's biographies of both Jobs and Musk. They are wonderful. Right? And balance your brutal truths with rational optimism. Build resilience and the faith that you will prevail. These books teach you wonderful lessons. So what have I done? If you think about it, I used my disciplined mind to synthesize information. I've created a PowerPoint for you. I've tried to be respectful and ethical in the way that I presented it to you, right? And I think that that is the way to think about it in the long game. As Montaigne said, I have just gathered a posy of other men's flowers, and nothing but the thread that binds me is my own. So none of these ideas are original. All of them come from these wonderful books, and I will leave you to think about those ideas and also read the books. Thank you.
We can take as many questions as possible. I think many doctor has tried to address this, as I find quite a few questions through the narration he had already articulated. But yet I think something which is unique, different, we'll try to take. How should educational institutions adapt to better for preparing future leaders by incorporating lessons from neuropsychiatry and behavioral neurology in the curriculum? I think basically how they can, the question is about how we introduce these principles in making the students become better leaders. That's what it's seen.
Thank you, sir. I think the most important thing, if you think about it, for education institutions is to not try to make all of us into square pegs that fit into round holes. Because ultimately, life and society is not predictable, and there is nothing there that you're going to perfectly fit into. So what educational institutions tend to do is give you a common curriculum that you're supposed to fulfill. Right? And that itself poses a challenge, because if you don't have that particular attribute, for example, some of us are terrible at taking exams, right? I'm bad at exams. I'm very good at vivas. You put me in front of examiners, you can ask me any question, I'll bash it out. But you give me an exam paper, that's it. I will screw it up badly and give it back to you. I've struggled with this all through my life. Okay. Now the problem, therefore, is if I only was always examined through vivas and not through exams, I would have been much better off, right? But that wasn't the case. I had to take a lot of exams which I did not like. And that's just a simple example of how our current education system is perhaps not perfectly oriented. Now, where can we improve? I think allowing people to take on projects that interest them, allowing people to choose optional subjects that interest them as part of their curriculum, allowing people to pick courses which are perhaps industry and work oriented rather than just education oriented, and which are offered. For example, I offered a famous university that I would come and run a behavioral psychology course for them, behavioral science course for them. They didn't take me up on it. I said, look, I'll do 10 modules for you, and 10 modules, it's an optional course. Anybody who wants to take it up can take it up. Just give them credits. They didn't have the openness of mind to think about it. But I think that will probably be a solution, that we do get, give people the opportunity to think about these things. I think if you think about it, the pandemic taught us that the mind is extremely important. And to understand the mind, you have to understand the brain, you have to understand neuroscience. So at some level, I think including this in education in many ways is very important. I'll leave you with one final thought. Do you know that of the top 50 CEOs in the world, more than 50% have a background in humanities, not in STEM, not in management. They have a background in humanities. You think that people who become CEOs will be from STEM and will be from management. I'm sorry to disappoint you, right? So it's very important to think much more broadly.
Thank you. Just also wanted to say about very nice way in which we got to know about 5 mines, very interesting. And the example of railway trolley, very interesting. We all got, for one thing or other, we wanted to raise the hand. Okay, so you caught us, actually. And the Stockwell paradox was really very well articulated. As you were taking us through this respectful, what was coming to my mind was same example, while many think to quote, the drivers, all of you know the truck drivers, one of the most underprivileged people in the society. We, especially oil industry, we look at them like a thieves only. Always we look at them because there are people, but we have also overcome through automation, the latest digital. But I am talking about some 15 years before. So, people would not talk to them. People would not treat them also properly. Always looked at as if some trouble creators. But this was an opportunity. In fact, I am a marketing person who suddenly was put into this kind of logistics. Then there was a challenge, how to deal with them. One thing I try to be there is treat them like me. Very simple. Same respect. Whether it is a canteen boy, or anybody, like if I address my father, Maryadya Vanga Pongana, same thing I used to deal. And very, looked at their problems. There are many problems. They have their own issues. But nobody cares, actually. Nobody cares. Like, there was an issue in Coimbatore about traffic restrictions. But we send the load right through the day. We have to meet the requirement of kerosene. Those days, kerosene was very important. Ration shops. And then I don't send the product to petrol pump. Entire people will agitate. There will be no product. Your transport system that has evolved. We have 21,000 buses in Tamil Nadu. So these are, you can't avoid sending the load. But they were caught by police. There were some deaths in the city on account of road accidents. Then everybody, BPC, HPC went on agitation. But the people, drivers there, because of this relationship, what doctor was talking about, the empathy reasons, they came to me and told, in fact, I asked them, those guys have gone on strike. What is that? Why you people have not, in fact? Then they were telling me, we have a confidence on you that you would find a solution to this. That actually put a pressure on me. I had to go to really police, and then we managed it well through the police. The point is how it can make a transformational change in the people when you treat them properly. The simple nuances that we exhibit in our behavior makes all the difference. Very impressive. We don't know what we do. That's the fact. But if these are not learnt, these occasions make us to at least realize the importance of the 5 minds. There's a few more questions. Little seems to be highly technical. Maybe only doctor can clarify us. How does neuroplasticity play a role in developing leadership qualities? Can the brain's capacity to change be actively leveraged to cultivate leadership skills?
Very good question, actually. So, one way, if you think about it, for many years, we thought the brain was a static organ. It could not change. Okay? About 25 years ago, University College London did this very interesting study. They looked at cab drivers, the people who drive the black cab in London. And in those days, you had no Google Maps. So you're supposed to memorize the map of London in your head. So they looked at those cab drivers when they were entering the training. It's called the knowledge. And when they left the training, and they measured the part of the brain which is responsible for memory, called the hippocampus. If you draw a line through your ears, right in the middle is the hippocampus on both sides. And what they showed was that as they went through this training, the hippocampus actually enlarged in size. It's one of the first proofs that the brain is a plastic organ. You can train your brain to become, to do something. Now, if you adapt this and think about your own lives, when you do something repeatedly, you become better at it, usually. Take driving as a skill, for example. Right? When you start off driving, you are conscious about everything that you do. Every time you change the gear, every turn that you take. Over a period of time, you will get from, say, Adyar to MMA, and you won't remember the journey at all because your mind was processing something else, because you picked up that skill. In many ways, leadership is no different. That repeated experience at taking decisions in critical moments, like Mr. Anadure has been talking about, getting people to do things, engaging in conversations, dealing with difficult situations, your brain starts processing this further because your brain works by recognizing patterns. And if you think about it, most of what we do in life is patterns, pattern recognition. For example, what I do in my work, by the time someone's told me the story, 3 minutes later, I mostly know what this problem is. Okay, and that's because of pattern recognition. Years of doing the same thing have taught me very quickly to diagnose this is what is wrong with this person. I could be wrong sometimes, and if I can't make up my mind in 3 minutes, I know this one's going to be challenging. Right? It's going to take me much longer. I'll need a lot of investigations to come to some conclusion. So, in a sense, leadership also, if you think about it, is pattern recognition. But leadership also is developing some of the skills that we talked about. It's being able to convince people to go along with you, which requires, even if you're not empathetic, a pretense of empathy. Right? You need to make them feel that you empathize with them, that you're making common cause with them. And this is something that we all have to, those are the skills that we have to perhaps work on developing. I used to say this for public speaking. People ask me, how do you public speak? Right? Stand in front of the mirror. Okay? Practice. Nobody speaks well in the beginning without practice. Some of us are better at it than others for natural reasons. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, if you practice repeatedly, you'll get better and better at it. Leadership also requires practice. And I think that's where the neuroplasticity comes in, because those neurons are going to fire more and they're building pathways inside your head. If you remember Vivek's slides from the last session, how your brain is full of these super highways, which are getting active. Leadership is also part of those super highways.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Few more questions. Could you share what are the key neurological and psychological traits that distinguish effective leaders from others?
So I don't know if there are key tests that distinguish leaders in that way. There are many key tests that tell you about your mental makeup, about your psychology. And if you work for any large organization, you'll be forced to take some of those tests before you join the organization. That is definitely there. What we know at work, for example, we do a psychometry for everybody who joins my company. And I can tell you one thing, that very often people will come and show me a very problematic psychometry. And they will say, do we really need this person in our organization? Right? And the thing I always tell them, the more difficult the person is, the more likely they are to be a leader. Because they think differently. They don't think like everybody else. So what you need then is the patience to bring them into a system and work with them in order that they express their leadership in a positive way. So in that way, tests are not always particularly helpful, according to me, as a choice of positive or negative. So this is one. And I think if you think about some of the greatest leaders, think about Steve Jobs, think about Elon Musk. I'm saying greatest leaders because they brought about technological revolutions. Complete technological revolutions that they commercialized. Not easy to do. And if you think about these guys, the independence of thought is something that defines them, that they think very differently. Why is SpaceX successful and Boeing has not succeeded? The reason is that Elon Musk puts crazy timelines on SpaceX. He will go into the floor and he will say, this rocket will be launched 17 days from now. And nobody will be even ready for 17 weeks from then. But the biography tells you that he always succeeds. He always gets people to follow the timeline that he sets. The rocket is launched 17 days from now. So somewhere the mind thinks very, very differently compared to everybody else.
Thank you. They get emboldened. Basically, once they attempt this very difficult, critical, crashed time task, once they achieve, they get emboldened. Like a small steps at a time. So that's what you were saying. Can you share specific exercise or practices that can help individuals train brains for leadership roles based on your clinical experience?
I honestly don't know what specific exercises or practices, but there are some commonalities of many great leaders which are now talked about. Many of them wake up by 5 a.m. Yeah. Many of them read. Many of them practice meditation or mindfulness. Many of them have a good work-life balance. They have time for other things. It's not just about work, and work. Okay? So these are things I think everybody can learn from leaders and everybody can transport onto their own life. That, you try to practice these things, you may actually succeed. But beyond that, there is opportunity. Beyond that, there is how we respond to opportunity. And finally, if you think about it, life is also a lot about luck. What cards the world tends to deal on you. You can't control that. But what you do with those cards, that you can control. And as Stockdale taught you, adversity can be turned into victory if only you have the right mindset. And I think that that's something that all of us can actually work on and think about.
Yeah, one last question we'll take. How can individuals identify and overcome mental barriers that hinder their leadership potential?
Excellent question again. I think if you think about it, with all honesty, the biggest barrier to our own growth is ourselves. Right? We are the solitary biggest barrier. We always saying, because of that, this did not happen. Because of this did not happen. Because of so-and-so, I did not grow. right? If you turn, there was in school I was taught a song. When you point your finger at the neighbor, there are three more pointing right back at you. The little one says you're not so hot, right? Now the point is, when you point the finger back at yourself, there are so many things that we are failing to do or not doing. And I think therefore self-belief and the need for self-belief is actually probably the sort of the stepping stone to doing well. You need to believe in yourself. You need to be willing to take risks. A leap of faith is important. When I do certain things, people who are close to me ask me, how do you know we won't get hurt when we do this? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out when I land. Right? I can't think about that when I'm leaping. Don't ask me to think about that when I'm leaping. When I land, I'll figure this one out. I'll deal with the problems then. So that leap of faith becomes very important. So, but what stops me from being an Elon Musk? Okay? And I call it the triple M disease, which I am struck with, which most of us are struck with. Middle class Madhavanitis. Right? We are so risk averse because we've always been taught to focus on failure that we are not willing to play the cards for success a lot of the time. Okay? What will happen when you fail is what preoccupies you. What will happen when you succeed? We don't think of that very often because we are conditioned not to think that way. Right? So, what differentiates leaders from others? Possibly that appetite for risk. And I don't really care about failure. I'm going to try anyway. And I am not my greatest impediment. If somebody stops me, it's somebody else. It's not me. Probably those are the recipes for, growth. And of course, there are people who spectacularly fail also. And I think the final point, if you don't have at least one failure, it's very hard to be a leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people you talk to who are in leadership positions, they failed at least once. And sometimes they fail spectacularly before they go to the next level. I think we should stop that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr.